Growing up emotionally neglected is like nearly dying of thirst outside the fenced off fountain of a parent's warmth and interest. When you're highly sensitive and the people you're dependent on in your most vulnerable years are emotionally immature, it scars you for life. In this video, I want to share how that actually happens and how deep those scars really go. It took me 6 years of healing and a lot of research to understand how deeply neglect impacted me as an HSP. The trauma caused by neglect is very sneaky because it's hard to recall or even make sense of something that didn't happen. To save you from all that pain, I've created this free AI tool that tells you exactly how much neglect you experienced as a child. You answer some questions and it gives you a score out of 100. Do check it out. It's important for you to know the characteristics of an immature parent to really understand the true impact of their neglect. So, I was recently watching a video on emotionally immature or narcissistic parents. I'm not sure which one, either or. And I scrolled below to read the comments. This is what one of the top comments said. Growing up with emotionally immature parents is like serving a life sentence for a crime you never committed. And that just hit me like a truck because emotionally immature parents really do break you at your core. Here are four of their primary characteristics. The first one is lack of empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand what someone else is feeling. And emotionally immature parents are physically incapable of understanding what you're feeling, even if they might be well intentioned and actually care for you. They just can't. The second characteristic is they are unavailable for your emotions. So, this is the second level. So, let's say they see and notice that you're sad, but they can't be bothered to comfort you, or again, they just don't know how to. The third characteristic is they invalidate your emotions. Now, this can range from blatant dismissal of your emotions to subtle messages. I remember this one instant as a child when I was super sad and I shared with an adult that, so this is what I literally said. I told them no one really loves me. And they asked me in the sweetest of way to not feel that. And even though their intention was to help me, the message that I got deep down was this feeling was not okay. It was not appreciated. The fourth characteristic is poor emotional regulation. This means that they are unable to handle their own emotions, whether it be anger or sadness, and you either have to support them through it or be at its mercy. So, emotionally immature parents are parents who don't see your emotions, ignore them, downright reject them, and can't handle their own. Although I believe that parents turn emotionally immature because they themselves had emotionally immature parents who also had immature parents. So it keeps going on and it's really no one's fault. But you can take accountability for your own emotions and trauma to stop this generational cycle once and for all. But why exactly do immature parents cause so much damage? So 6 years ago, before I started my healing journey, I just wanted to become more charismatic so that I can get laid. And I used to follow Julian Blanc back then. He kept saying that if you want to become a true social master, you must release all the trapped emotions and trauma that you carry. And I remember listening to that and thinking, I don't fucking carry any trauma. Apart from a couple of scary incidences, there wasn't much trauma in my past. But my charisma was pretty low, still is. I also trusted him. So, out of curiosity, I started with an emotion based meditation to process the very little that I carried. And in a very short time, I was confronted with the sheer amounts of emotions and trauma that I had suppressed. And that confused me for a very long time. Like, how is this possible? Nothing bad happened in my past until I realized that was neglect trauma. It wasn't because bad things happened to me, but rather good things that were supposed to happen didn't happen. So, what are those good things? The first one is attachment. A child needs to be attached to an adult who protects it and loves it. Because without attachment to a caring adult, you cannot survive even a day as a baby. Second, a child needs to feel secure about that attachment. So if you're approved when you act polite and are dismissed when you're acting rowdy, that's that is insecure attachment, which means that you have to be a certain way to feel attached to your parent or caregiver. The third one is emotional expression. Research shows that for the emotional part of a child's brain to fully develop, the expression of all your emotions, especially the negative ones like sadness, anger, fear, shame, should be encouraged and supported. The final one is unconditional love. A child needs love irrespective of what they do. So if you are loved only when you score an A plus on the test and ignored when you failed, that's conditional love. If you need more concrete examples, do check out the test. It's super comprehensive. Because these needs are so fundamental to the mental and emotional development of a child's brain, when any of these needs are violated, the child suffers. When a parent deliberately or by mistake violates these needs, psychologically, that is the equivalent of withholding water when you're thirsty and desperate for it. But if you're wondering why exactly the violation of these needs impact a child so deeply, here's why. Let me be a nerd and explain this purely logically. So there are two types of trauma. The first one is capital E trauma, which is caused by horrible things happening to you. So things which are a threat to your life or safety. So an example could be sexual assault. That could be one of the cause of capital T trauma, which in turn causes PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder. Now think for a second from a baby's perspective. Maybe try to put yourself in the shoes of a 6-month-old baby. For that baby, he is 100% dependent on his parents for food, shelter, safety, and each and every one of his needs. And when he doesn't get that food, shelter, he dies. And also for that baby, if he is loved by his parents, they will provide him with food, shelter, and all of those needs that are essential for his survival. So love of his parents becomes the equivalent of food, safety, and survival. And on the other hand, no love becomes a threat to his safety, food, and survival. So he starts equating an absence of love with death. Of course, this is not conscious, but at a very deep subconscious instinctual level. And hence, the brain of an emotionally neglected child is in the fight and flight mode most of the time, which releases a lot of stress hormones 24/7 in the body. This causes another type of trauma, which is much less known in the society. You can call it small t trauma. And even though mainstream science doesn't acknowledge it much, leading experts on trauma like Dr. Bessel, Dr. Gabor Mate, Peter Levine, Richard Schwartz, the people that I have learned from, they unanimously agree that small t trauma can be equally as damaging as capital T trauma. But if you want to start healing the sneaky neglect trauma, watch this video next where I talk about the 20 lessons I learned from 2000 days of healing my own neglect trauma.